From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
This is a geopolitical story that has been reported to a degree in Western media, but there are a lot of questions that this story brings up that I don't think have been addressed. And I wanted to share this with you all and share this with you, fellow conspiracy realists. So Vladimir Putin, may have heard of him. He's, he's like somewhat popular in Russia and has been for a number of years. You can see photographs of him from his intelligence agency days where he's pretending to be a photographer. Kidding. That's kind of a myth. He's more well known for being the long-running strongman, sometimes president, sometimes prime minister of Russia. Recently, Russia's parliament came out with a pretty interesting law. The idea here is that if this bill passes and becomes law, a Russian president could be made immune from any criminal prosecution once they leave office. So you've got immunity for life.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, this doesn't happen in a vacuum, by the way, which is why it's weird people didn't pay attention to the timing. Edward Snowden is now a permanent resident of Russia. I reached out to him on Twitter. I haven't heard back. And also the huge brouhaha with the contentious U.S. election, right? With one member or one candidate for the election, well known to be somewhat of a sycophant for Russia. And that's not my opinion. Those are the facts. So for Putin to drop out or to try to institute this law, which is not technically his suggestion, whatever, at this time, it seems like there could be some connective tissue there. So is Putin preparing for a transition of power? Like, is he concerned at all about what may shake out in the next few years? Some sources have been saying that there is a medical concern. I think it was the Daily Mail or an outlet of that note had said that Putin was possibly suffering from Parkinson's, but we haven't seen any hard reporting on that. And the Russian government came out and said that they had there was no compelling medical reason. But then again, I mean, look at what happened, to bring up Ronald Reagan. Look at what happened with Reagan and losing cognitive ability during the presidency. No one's going to say that, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of Ronald Reagan, have you guys seen the trailer for the new, Call of Duty game that's like based on the Cold War? And there's a really horrifying like computer animation of Ronald Reagan in the trailer.
No, I haven't seen this.
It's a thing. I was like, is that video game Ronald Reagan? Like, what are they up to? And it was, Call of Duty Cold War. But no, 100%. And it also makes me think, Ben, of, all the hubbub that surrounded Kim Jong-un, falling out of the public eye briefly, and all of this wild speculation that, like, did he die or what have you. And this is obviously the early days of this type of speculation. And to your point about Daily Mail being the kind of the source, I mean, there's sort of a journal of ill repute, I suppose we could say. But it'll be interesting to follow. What do you think, though, Ben? Like, do you have any other evidence or any, tea leaves that you've been seeing that would indicate something is up? Has he been making fewer appearances than usual?
So it's strange because the way it's being reported in the West pretty often is a little misleading. There already is a federal law granting a form of limited but pretty comprehensive immunity to Russian presidents. It passed in February of 2001. And what this law is actually something that's familiar to a lot of other countries. The original law in 2001 says a Russian president cannot be held liable for actions they have taken during office, during the exercise of their power. And that's pretty common in other countries because, yeah, Matt, you're right. It's pretty common in other democracies because this is like it's a tall order to hold the job of president and not somehow be implicated in what at least one or two other countries considers a war crime. You know, that's just the reality here. But this law may be different because it could be absolute immunity for actions taken not only during office, but after you leave office.
Well, it's what he did for Boris Yeltsin, right? My understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is that as soon as Putin got into power, he essentially passed a few acts that said Boris Yeltsin would be free from prosecution for anything he did while he was in office.
Which makes sense. Like there is a long-running trope or pattern in a lot of these kind of state-level transitions, and it's that the previous person, if their parties align, the previous person in power is pardoned. Please excuse all the P's there, but that's the truth. And with Putin, I think one of the reasons we're seeing so much speculation, a lot of which is unfounded, is primarily because, to a degree, Putin is a black box. You know, he's got tons of oligarchs either exiled or on his team. No one really knows how much money he has. There are a lot of things about him that remain enigmatic because he's a former spy, and they're good at stuff like that.
And he has been chilling in a bunker for most of COVID-19 season that we've been going through, rather than being anywhere public. He's just hanging out in a bunker, you know, as you do.
There's something else though that this parliamentary working group that proposed this bill, there's something else that affected their decision. Last month, October, took me a second, guys, pandemic rules. Last month, the president of Russia announced a suite of sweeping reforms to the overall political system. And get this seems counterintuitive, but watch the chess game here, right? Watch the 3-card Monte of power. His reforms are going to shift power away from the position of the presidency right around the time his term ends in 2024. So the question is, what new position will he take?
Isn't there something, maybe I'm wrong, I'm looking at a Guardian article that was reposted in MSN, and I cannot find it originally on the Guardian anymore. Mm-hmm. But it is saying that essentially this legislation would entitle any former president to a lifetime seat. I'm giving a quote here: a lifetime seat as a senator within the Russian Federation Council.
That's correct.
So are they trying to move power to that council? Or because if they're doing that, then holy crap. You just have a bunch of old oligarchs ruling everything. Because, I mean, Putin isn't a spry. Well, I mean, he's spry still, obviously.
He's comparatively spry to a lot of other world leaders, yeah. But also, check this out. So there's more stuff happening in the background here. Russia also, before that, adopted a constitutional amendment that is best described, and the Guardian mentions this too, Matt, is best described as resetting term limits, not for the Russian president, for Vladimir Putin. This would allow him potentially to run for president 2 more times, staying in office until 2036, at which point he would be 84. But that happened in June of 2020, back before he knew how this election would go in the U.S., if you believe that the elections are not kind of pre-decided through things like the Electoral College, which we'll have an episode on, we promise. The thing is that presidential immunity is a huge incentive. And we also don't know how many pies globally Putin has his hands in, right? We don't know what he would need to be immune from. That is the question that people should be asking, right? And what, like lifetime immunity from prosecution, a lifetime seat in the Senate, becoming in some ways the king in all but name. You know what I mean? And it's a world, it's not a crazy sci-fi political thriller Game of Thrones-esque world. This is something that is very close to becoming true. And I just wonder, I wonder whether this is in any way connected to events in the U.S. I think that's a fair question to ask, if a little bit U.S. centric and self-important. But then the other question is like, why? So why now? Why this? And what next? It also makes it very difficult to revoke immunity. So they really thought about this immunity part for some reason.
You know, even in the States, there's been a lot of talk around like, you know, say what you will about the president, like what could he pardon himself or pardon his family or pardon, you know, like use that power to have some form of immunity over perceived crimes. But even then, it's not like he can pardon himself for future events that haven't happened yet. So this really is like some next level power to be able to be forever immune from any prosecution. I don't know how that isn't inherently just looked at as just the most corrupt thing possible. Because to even need that would imply that you have the intention of doing these things or doing things that you'd need to be protected from.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine right now, if you're a resident of the United States, it doesn't matter where you're a resident of, imagine if George W. Bush was still in office or still in charge of the United States right now. After all of these years, after everything that's happened, after all of these major global decisions on diplomacy, on war, on all of these things, like, imagine if then he was saying, guys, just need you to pass this law. It's just going to say that everything I've done is cool. It's kosher. We're all right. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm going to go over here, get a seat on the Senate of somewhere, maybe Texas State Senate. Cool. All right. All right. Bye. I mean, just imagine, like, that is what's happening. It's just happening, you know, for us in a different place. I don't know. I want to hear from people who live in Russia who've been watching this and living this. I want to hear what they think.
Or people who live in former Soviet republics as well, because that's still, those decisions will still impact your life. And we'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear from you. I'm very curious. I do want to say, so there's been some scuttlebutt saying that this proposal had some critics, and one piece of speculation I couldn't confirm said that Putin was one of those critics. I don't believe it, because this is kind of an international norm, but there's hilarity to it as well. Like, think about this. So what we're talking about is the Russian Federation, right? That's the big corner brownie of the cake pan that was the USSR. The Russian Federation exists still. It's been in existence for about 29 years. It has had 3 presidents. One of those is dead. So there are 2 left. And then they're writing the law like, you know, if a Russian president, like they have a Russian president. That's exactly like us writing a law that was like, you know, if a podcaster or a producer for stuff they don't want you to know happens to take a 2018 Ford Explorer and happens to hit, you know, a Popeye's chicken at 678 Ponce de Leon Avenue Northeast, then they should be immune. That's just a law, hypothetically. Like, that's how weird it is.
Hold on.
Man, you just doxed the hell out of Popeye's chicken.
That's not their real address.
Oh, okay. Thank God.
I really thought you meant just like a piece of Popeye's chicken or something. Like it was just one piece was there.
Well, that's just called wasteful. That's not a crime against humanity or anything.
It's 683 Boulevard Northeast. That's where our Popeyes is, and I will defend it because, again, it's great. It's great, and I like that they save so much on diplomacy and pass the savings on to you. Wow. That's the longtime listeners. That's the same place where I can't remember what show I mentioned on. That's the place where I've rolled up before, and the person at the drive-thru has just said, "What?"
Yeah, I've gotten that treatment too, actually.
I miss them. They're great. But yes, but you see what I'm saying? Like, writing this in such a general sense is not even misleading. It's just weird. It's like, why at that point, why bother? Let's say like this president. The issue though is that we can't really throw stones. This is a glass house situation, and this is something that you see in a lot of other countries in the U.S. and Western democracies. But I don't know. I really don't know about the timing, and we obviously cannot take, like, we can't 100% trust official Russian statements or official Kremlin statements about the health of the president of Russia. They're not going to say like, wow, yeah, this guy's got 6 months and he is pissed. They're going to say he's great. He's been doing great. You're being weird. Chill. Okay. It's a law about a Russian president, everybody.
Yeah. Medvedev. What is his name? Dmitry Medvedev. I don't even know how to.
That's exactly what the Kremlin said. That's a quote. They were like, the other one too.
The Dmitry guy, you're right.